Hello, this is Reverend Dore Jacques Patlian teaching religious science, which is the science of mind, the perennial philosophy from Sarasota, Florida. Today, let's talk about what in the world's going on around here. Yes, if you're looking at my blog, wakeupandlive.net, that picture of that good-looking guy with the dark horn-rimmed glasses on and the pretty lady is the Reverend with my firstborn daughter, Alana. What in the world is going on in our world? It sometimes seems to me that the pieces of our societies are literally flying apart. Secessionist movements are rising nearly everywhere on the planet: the Ukraine, Iraq, Syria, Congo, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Texas, Quebec, Scotland, the Balkans, Kurdistan, Philippines, and many, many more places. Right here in the good old US of A, our politics are even more polarized than normal, and they were always polarized and always nasty. We seem to look back and think of this rosy time when everybody got along well. I've lived 68 years and I can't remember any time like that. And the public seems to be sunk in a miasma of distrust and cynicism about the government and the nation. They don't trust government at all. What's the reason? We've always had wide differences of opinion in the U.S. When I was young in the 1950s, the South was still fighting the Civil War, or the war between the states, as they called it. And being called a Yankee was not a compliment in the states of the old Confederacy. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, but that doesn't mean I was immune from these ethnic and regional divisions, because we had a lot of folks from all over the country out there then. You see, my father was a New Yorker, upstate New York. And my mother was a flower of the old South from Florida. Yes, Florida was, and in most of the state still is, very southern in culture and lifestyle. And Mom was born in 1911 in Clearwater, Florida. All you got to do is go about 35 miles inland from the coast, and all of a sudden you hear yes sir and no sir and y'all come back and get grits with every meal. Now, Mom and Dad fought the Civil War each night at the dinner table, and I got to referee, but that turned out to be a benefit to me. I believe this nightly debate is what fed my lifelong love of history and what led me to become a high school history teacher. At least I did get both sides of the story, and there's always two sides of every story, which is more than students get today. They only get to hear what the winners wrote, not what the losers went to war for. What changed? Well, I sure don't have all the answers, and I'm the first to admit it, but it seems to me that one thing that's changed was the idea of one nation under God and the idea of the melting pot that was taught to school children and new immigrants until about the late 1960s. The current idea is the fruit salad idea and the great idea of diversity. The fruit salad says we all sit in the same bowl, but we never blend, rather like a fruit salad. We're no longer a nation of one out of many, but rather many out of one. We are now divided into constituency groups, each with their own cause, race, ethnicity, or issue. And our political parties have fragmented along those lines as well. We no longer teach or preach oneness as a nation, as a people, or even as a church here at the Centers for Spiritual Living. We value diversity all over all things, believing that everyone having their own little niche is more important than one nation standing together, working together, and loving together. Yes, the individual should be supreme and should remain so in our system. There's nothing more important than individual liberty. But our hearts and our minds must reach a broader consensus about what it really means to be an American. We must reclaim our pride at being the original architect of liberty and democracy on this planet. We are the first and still one of the few to really make it work. Sure, it's messy. Democracy's always messy because it's about a whole bunch of people trying to agree on anything. But it is precious. It's a pearl of great price. Only those who have lived in other lands, even in our dearest friend the UK, which is a very free country, still doesn't have the individual emphasis that the United States does. If you've lived anywhere else, you'll understand that individual political and economic freedom is an idea, an ethos, and an unquenchable fire in the soul of America. You see, America is an ideal. It's a great idea. The United States is the nation. The overriding truth is that each person in this world is the brother or sister of every other human. We are of one lineage, that of the divine mind, the great architect, the ground of being that we call God. Understanding and teaching this day in and day out can and will eventually save the world. This is an idea the world must embrace. Diversity, while fashionable and politically correct, I've never been a fan of that concept, has sown bitter seeds in our national mind and heart. You see, when you teach diversity over and over, you exclude unity. We must never exclude anyone or bar anyone from the highest fulfillment of their dreams that their will, talent, and character can create. And I think that's what we were trying to do with diversity, but we used the wrong method. But we must guard against elevating someone less qualified just because they belong to a certain group, race, ethnic group, or religion in order to satisfy some artificial concept of diversity. Life is a story that each of us writes with our thought, our word, and our choices. And success given but not earned has a bitter, sour taste in the mouth. You know, I taught in the LA Unified School District for 20 years, and I've heard this firsthand from several minority principals who back in the 70s were elevated straight from the classroom to the principal's chair because there weren't enough black or Hispanic principals. They didn't earn their way up the administrative ladder, which often took 5 to 10 years to get, well, to be a principal, more like 10 years of going up the steps. Many told me that, sure, it was great to make the money, but there was no pride of accomplishment in it because they knew that they did not earn it. They only got it because of their ethnicity or their color. They often felt like actors playing a token role. Artificial quotas do not spawn diversity, but they do bar those of talent from their dreams because they are not the fashionable color, culture, or gender of the moment. Mother always taught me that 2 wrongs never made a right, but perhaps that's just not fashionable anymore. You know, you can't correct one great wrong by committing another wrong on another group of people. I'm not speaking of politics here. I'm speaking of the slicing and dicing of the brotherhood and sisterhood of humankind into niche markets, niche nations, and niche politics. Time to unify, not separate. Time to come together as one, not create little fiefdoms for every sect or tribe. You know, my conservative friends would have the vapors, as my mother would say, if they read this. But I will tell you now that the only reasonable future for this world is to use the form and structure, with key improvements, of the government of the United States of America and apply it to the entire globe. No, I'm not talking about America dominating the world, but we supply the structure and concept. Each nation would become a state and the United States of Terra, or Earth. Oh my God, he's a one-worlder, my right-of-center friends are saying right now. Yeah, I know, I might be actually, but I never was before, but I've come to see that it's really the only way to save this planet. A united planet is the only possible future for an Earth that lives in plenty, peace, harmony, and freedom. As long as each little tribe or country or nationality is fighting another one, we're never going to be able to have the Earth that we should have. The form of our government here in the United States is probably the best ever devised, but a virus has invaded our body politic, and we're a little bit sick at the moment. And that virus is the false premise of diversity that breeds factionalization and ideology, class warfare and envy over aspiration, pragmatism, and compromise. Above all else, America needs to be an aspirational country, and that's what it always was. That's what my grandfather came to America for, so he could be anything he wanted to be, and he had to work his tail off to do it. He was a college graduate, but he had to go back and take medical school all over again because they wouldn't accept the medical school in Armenia. But he did it, and he became a doctor and was very proud of that fact. You see, We're all diverse. Every one of us is unique and different, and that's magnificent, but it isn't the most important thing about us. Diversity, true diversity, is an organic thing. It must grow in the heart and mind, not be force-fed by courts, laws, and quotas. It must appear naturally, just as my own family mirrors the diversity born of a great love. This is Reverend Doré Jacques Patlian wishing you every good thing in your life and in the lives of those you love. Be sure to leave a comment on the podcast or below the post if you're reading the website. Thank you, and bye-bye for now.